Hello and welcome to our first video in the Read to Achieve section of Learner Support, and we're going to be thinking about the keywords objective, subjective and signal words. So if you were in the support session, you will know how to use those. If you were not in the support session, follow the video to get some idea of use. So to begin with, a fact is objective and can be verified. It means you can check it, and that's why we say fact check. And when you're looking at social media, you might also be aware of false facts, which means when you try to verify it, you find it's not true. But a fact is objective. And an opinion is subjective. That's about how you feel or think about something. So, have you got that in your head? Then let's look at a revision of what we did. So, to begin with, in Read and Achieve, we're going to look at fact and opinion. So, Read to Achieve is in our support sessions, fact and opinion, and that's what this video is about. So we talked about the three key things we need to do. Know a definition, that's your own definition about how you understand fact and opinion, and that's what you're going to apply to every reading text. Make sure you read the text and don't just skim or scan, but do detailed reading when you're thinking about fact or opinion, because you need to find the signal words, and that's when you can scan a sentence for signal words. So the words that you find in a sentence that are going to demonstrate fact or opinion, and that's how we distinguished between fact and opinion in our support session. And very well done, ladies, because you at the end had a definition you can use, you've done some reading of the text, and you're beginning to identify those signal words. Do you remember that we started off with a fact, a sentence that was all about the mini, and the mini being produced in a particular year? So was that sentence a fact? We decided yes, it was a fact because it provided specific and verifiable information, and it's all about being objectively confirmed. You can find some evidence or record on that. So the statement we looked at about the mini was factual, and if you want to, you can search Google or use an AI to ask the question, when was the mini produced? And then it will allocate the answer to you from different sources. But I mostly like to avoid AI, that's what you might get there, and actually go to the historical source of the information from the motor company that will identify that correct information. But for us today, we're thinking about it is information that can be verified, but it doesn't mean that that verification is actually in the sentence. So please do remember that. So when we thought about anything that we looked at, remembering to keep that definition that you've got in your head and looking at, can you find it out? There you can see I can look up the information about who founded the Ford Motor Company, and if I want to, I can look at other verified information to check that information is actually factual. So we also looked at opinions. What kind of opinions were there? And we thought again about that word subjective, all right, and the signal words for opinion might be different according to the sentence that you're actually looking at. So we're going to move on to talk about a lot more signal words later, but at the end of this video I'll go over the words that we began with for this session. So we talked about reading about a learner's life experience, and from that looking at facts and opinions, and we did finish the session with signal words. So I'm going to just quickly show you the reading that we did, and then I'm going to go straight to the sentences that we took from that reading to make a decision. Is it a fact or opinion? And remember, when you're reading in the exam, sometimes you've still got in your head the information around the sentence. So we're going to look at how we highlight a particular sentence, so your mind is only focusing on that when you're thinking about fact and opinion. So if you do want to go back over the learner information, please just pause the video and have a look at it from there. But I'm just going to quickly go through about Julie and where she worked, what she wanted to do, and what her friend told her, and about how she realised she could join an adult family community learning lesson, session, course, and then what happened next, and how that became something positive finally at the end. So that information is what we're looking at to find fact and opinion. So we began with Julie's achievements helped her do what she always wanted to do, which was become a qualified nurse. But how much of her journey was a fact, and how much of that story, the journey of her life in improving her education, was an opinion? So we then looked at sentences. So do you remember that sentence? The distribution manager thought Julie was a good worker. And when you're looking at, is it subjective or is it objective, Jenny quite rightly identified thought. So when Helen was thinking about what the manager was doing, she also realised, or you also realised, that the manager was thinking. So that had to be subjective. So signal words are very important. So it's not a fact, it's an opinion. It's about something that's subjective. It's a personal viewpoint, and that means it can change. And this is a really important thing about opinion. If it varies, it's not a fact, is it? So what about the sentence, Julie is better off now? Do you remember that discussion that we had about being better off? How do you demonstrate that you're better off? So this sentence is not a fact, it's an opinion. We're not thinking about in our head, what can we see? We're thinking about, or what can we think about from that sentence? We're thinking about what's actually in that sentence. So in that sentence, there's only opinion because it's subjective. And the sentence, if we wanted to make it into a fact, we talked about how you would include the information about the evidence. So for this particular piece of reading, that is an opinion. And I hope that shows you that sentences have to be looked at in their entirety, and that you can't just learn this is a fact, that's an opinion. You actually have to look at words and how do they work together, and which words signal, is that a fact or an opinion. So what about the sentence, Julie worked in the distribution centre for 10 years? Yes, it's a fact if you look at that sentence on its own and you look at, is there a number, is there a reference to years? And when you were talking about number and percentages and things that are used to identify, that is objective. So if it's objective, then the signal word is about, in that sentence, the number of years. And you could objectively confirm it by having a look at Julie's work record. Jim told Julie about his job. This can be a little bit of a complicated sentence for some people, but you did that correctly because you were able to say, is that a fact or is it an opinion? And if you can't work it out, is that an objective statement or is that subjective? Okay. And because you discovered it's objective, there's nothing in there that suggests something about how Jim felt. So it's quite it's quite objective. See, even I can do that. It's like, is it objective or subjective? It's objective, and you could verify it, couldn't you? Because you could go and find out from Julie, or you could go and ask Jim. So it's a fact. It's an objective statement. Julie has always wanted to work with people. I love how we could take out that phrase, has always wanted to, and think about, if you always wanted to do something, what would you feel? And if there's a feeling, it's subjective. So it's an opinion. It's not a fact, because the sentence is just reflecting how Julie feels and that personal preference to want to do that. And if you read that particular section there is a spelling mistake. I wonder if you can find the spelling mistake and tell me the word that's spelled incorrectly. So we'll have a look in our next session to see if you got that one right. So, it's an opinion. And remember, the signal words, they're not always signalling a fact or an opinion, but you have to be aware of them and decide how are they being used. So, we looked at provable by, observable, measurable, confirm, substantiate, prove, and it's about looking at your piece of reading and working out what words are being used to signal ideas in that sentence. Because you might actually get facts that are shown by numbers or places or dates or times. And sometimes when we're referring to an expert, we write according to, or we might say that that person substantiates the information. But be very careful, because sometimes opinions can be written to look like facts, and even when you have signal words, you have to decide, is this sentence something that contains something subjective, or is it objective? And that, linked with the signal words, will give you the idea of, is it a fact or an opinion? So what about with opinions then? We looked at if you write that you believe, or personally, or think, or feel, or always or never do something, or claim or agree that you might or should, guess, have no doubt, probably, suspect. And again, be careful, because sometimes those signal words are used in an objective sentence to create a fact. And sometimes you have to really look at those signal words and say, let's take that to one side. What am I left with? Is it subjective or is it objective? If it's subjective, it's an opinion. If it's objective, it's a fact. So, do you know the difference between fact and opinion? Our next session will look at identifying how quickly can you look at a sentence and say fact or opinion. So let's see how you do then. Bye now.